This is the thing that people don't do. The people who give up 2 weeks in, this is what they don't do. Alright, so it's January 2nd, 2021. So 2020 is officially over. So the first time that I ever set a New Year's resolution was actually, I think it was 2015 or something like that. So from like age 17 to 22-ish, something like that, I was kind of going through a dark period, and I actually had gained weight, and I was up to like 230 pounds, something like that. And then I lost all the weight in 2012, and I was actually really inspired by this book called Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins. And it took like 4 months or something, so I lost it all in one summer. And ever since then, I've just been making goals for myself. I'm definitely a goal setter now. I make New Year's resolutions every year now. So like, I'm still thinking of my resolutions, but I realize that I definitely have resolved to put out at least 2 EPs and to get the art done by professional artists. I have these ideas in my head for the art and all that stuff. So I actually want to talk about the word resolution first. Like, what is that? What does it actually mean? Because I actually feel like most people, when they set resolutions, they don't actually resolve to finish them. It's like we typically set these things called resolutions, but it's like we haven't actually thought about what that means. Like, what does it actually mean to resolve something? Because I feel like most people, when they set a resolution, it's more like a hope or something. It's more like you set something that you kind of want, and then you try, and then you stop 2 weeks in. Because that's actually the time that most people stop. Most people quit about 2 weeks into the year. Just 2 weeks in, they stop. So what does that say? It means that they didn't actually technically resolve to do it. So if they had really truly resolved in their mind to do that thing, they would have done it. So if you think about it, it's almost like they unconsciously resolved to quit. They resolved to not take it seriously. I'm not trying to be whatever, but it's just the truth. If you just look at it logically, that's what happened. One thing that I've learned is that it's really, really effective to define success for you. So what does that mean for you as a musician? So for me, success as a musician is basically to make a living as a musician. It can vary depending on like where you are and how far you want to take it. So if it's more like a hobby or something, then it's going to be different. You don't necessarily want like exposure or anything like that. You really just want to enjoy it, which is totally cool too. So your definition could be something like having enough time allocated throughout the year in order to enjoy your hobby. So your resolutions might be different if you're someone like me and you really want to make a living as a musician. So it could be something like you can resolve to figure out music distribution, to sign up for a music distribution website. That could be one of your resolutions. And that's something that I've done. And if you're not familiar with that, by the way, it might sound intimidating, like music distributors and stuff, but it's really not at all. Like, you're literally just going onto a website and you sign up, and then you upload your music, and then they upload it to Spotify and all those places. It's really easy, actually. So one thing that I've learned is that a lot of the times when we don't actually resolve to do that thing, it's because we don't have good enough reasons. This is something I've learned from Tony Robbins, actually, because he's been a huge inspiration. He was the author of Awaken the Giant Within, which is the book that I mentioned before that really changed my life pretty much. So this actually brings me to this thing that I want you to do. This is something that I did back in 2014. This is back when I actually didn't used to work out. Now I exercise every day, and I actually work out like maybe 3-4 times a week, something like that. And then I go for like a walk every day, and fitness and like exercise is definitely a big part of my life now. So back in 2014, there's this other guy who's this really awesome success coach named Brian Tracy, and I highly recommend looking into his stuff too. I had this really, really interesting activity that I did, that he came up with. And I swear to God, it was one of the best activities I ever did as far as goal setting. Extremely effective. So what you're going to do is you're going to get a piece of paper, and you're going to write down your resolutions, whatever they may be. You're going to write down 10 things, at least 10 reasons why pursuing and achieving your resolution will benefit your life, will benefit you. How is it really going to help you? What will you gain from it? That's going to be the first 10, at least 10. Now the second thing, second column, 1 through 10, you're going to list all of the reasons why it would be a bad idea not to do it. So what would you lose by not pursuing this goal, by not achieving it? What will you lose from it? How will that negatively impact your life? So I did that 2014. I actually did that. I didn't have any kind of exercise regimen or anything like that ever. And then 2014, I did this exercise, and then I started doing an exercise regimen, kind of inspired by this exercise that I did, and then I've been exercising regularly ever since. So this was actually the exercise, this little writing thing. This was really the trigger that really got me exercising regularly. Yeah, so if your goal, if one of your resolutions is to get your music out there, you know, to gain exposure. So what if you did sign up for a music distributor or something like that? What would happen? What would that, how would that affect your life positively? It's going to get your music online, so now you can market it and gain more exposure from that. So why would it be a bad idea? Because if you don't do that, if you don't start researching it and sign up for something like that, then you're going to probably continue to be in obscurity. Especially nowadays where things are just like, you know, very much online. And even before COVID, things were just going more and more online. So I really feel like we need to just get on board with that despite whatever happens. You know, I feel like that was the trend. It's like concerts were unfortunately becoming less popular, stuff like that. So we need to learn how to get a presence online, in my opinion. So if you don't do the music distribution thing, for example, then you're going to stay in obscurity, which is really the antithesis of success. Because really, if you think about it, like the biggest factor for becoming successful is to get out of obscurity, because that's the only way that we can reach people. All right, another thing I want to talk about is how high should you set the bar when you're setting your resolutions. So, you know, there's kind of a debate about that. Like some people say, including myself for the most part, is like we should set the bar really high. Because if we set the bar really freaking high and we fail, we're still going to have gotten further towards our main goal than if we were to have set the bar really low and succeed. So like a lot of times we don't do that because we're afraid of failure. So it's like if we set the bar really high, what if we do that and then we fail? Well, it's like, but if your goal, you know, we defined our end goal or our definition of success. So like if my goal is to make a living as a musician, and I set the bar really freaking high this year, and I fail to achieve that, I'm going to be further along than if I set the goal of like, I'm going to write a song. You know, that's like the minimal goal. You don't want to set it really low. You don't want to try to be like realistic about it, because you're going to go further if you're actually unrealistic. So you got to ask yourself, it's like, yeah, what if you do fail? What if you set the bar really high and then you fail? Well, is that really failing? If you're actually closer to your end goal because of that, is that really failing? Or is it failing to set the bar really, really low and to succeed? Which one is actually failing? So if your end goal is this thing up here, set the bar really freaking high. So even if you fail, you're going to be closer to achieving that goal. You also, you know, obviously you want to be somewhat realistic. Yeah, so let's just say you're just starting out, something like that, and you're just starting to learn your instrument. So if you want to be as good as John Petrucci or as good as Joe Satriani, something like that, you really want to be as good as those guys, that's your definition of success, then you really have to just be realistic about it in the sense that you can get there. But the fact is, when we learn instruments, it really takes years and years to get to that level. That being said, it's like you could, if you know that, you know, when I was just saying, if you know that logically, you could technically still say something like, I want to be as good as John Petrucci, and kind of use that as motivation to push yourself, you know, and you probably will get further along than if you were to say, you know, I just want to get as good as, you know, I just want to learn a song or something like that. You're probably not going to get as good if you didn't have that really crazy high goal. Just be realistic about it, but still freaking push yourself, and you can use that as motivation to go even further. Alright, so now one more thing. So now that you have your resolutions in mind, the things that you want, what I want you to do is right after you finish this video, I want you to take one action. Just one action. It doesn't have to be gigantic, it's just one little action. So it could be go and research music distributors. It could be go and sign up for a mixing course, something like that. But go and do one little thing. It could be go for a walk and brainstorm ideas of what you could do for a product. You know, brainstorm ideas for a CD that you want to put out, something like that, or an album, a digital album probably. You know, just write down some notes, just one little action. That's the first thing. That's the first step. And then I want you to write down, what am I going to do when things get challenging? What am I going to do when things get challenging to continue to persevere towards my goal? Because that is really going to be very important, because things are going to get challenging, and this is the thing that people don't do. The people who give up 2 weeks in, this is what they don't do. They don't figure out what they're going to do to prepare themselves for when things do get challenging, because the inspiration is going to wear off. Like, inspiration is fleeting. It's really nice when it happens, but it's going to wear off, and then that's when you have to put in the work. So what are you going to do? How are you going to remind yourself of this end goal? That part is really up to us, I feel like, is to figure out, like, what are we going to set in place when things do get challenging? Well, if this happens and I start to doubt things, if I start to lose drive, I'm going to go back to all these freaking things that I wrote down, all the reasons for the positives and the negatives. I'm going to look at that and I'm going to continue, you know, just set in place these little things that we're going to do to ensure that we continue. So we don't end up quitting like most people do, and we actually resolve, really resolve to do these things. For me, that's really what will make the difference between truly resolving and just kind of hoping for the best, that kind of thing. Alright, so I post a new video every Monday. You can listen to my music on Spotify. The link's in the description for that if you're interested. Also want to thank my patrons on Patreon. You guys are freaking awesome, and I will see you in the next one. And good luck. See you.